So on today's podcast, we're talking about an element of mental agility related to training our minds to shift into a pathway of possibilities rather than the easier pathway of a that will never work mentality. Keep listening and more to come. Welcome back to The Thermostat with Jason Barger. If you're currently on a commute, a walk, or just a micro break in your day, glad you're making time to step back, to think, and to reflect on the next steps on your journey. I've never been more convinced the best leaders and team cultures in the world are the ones that make time to step back, breathe in good oxygen, and calibrate their thermostat. I hope today's conversation leaves you feeling grounded and inspired. Now let's dive into today's topic to engage our minds and hearts in order to authentically lead and create compelling cultures wherever we are in the world. Hey everyone, it's Jason, and welcome back to the Thermostat Podcast. Wherever you are or however you're coming to the podcast today, welcome back. So glad you are with us. So glad you are tuning back in. If you have been with us from day one of this podcast, so glad you continue to be with us and that this continues to add value to your life and your work. And if you are new to the podcast, it continues to grow and spread in exciting ways. So glad you are a part of it too. And I encourage you to go back and listen, check out some old episodes, some great interviews, some great episodes that we've done in the past. So check it out. Glad you're here. Glad you're back. And let's dive into today. I'll just say this from the very beginning. As always, my hope with this podcast is that this is a place for you to step back in your own life and work, to think, hopefully to think about the temperature you're trying to set in your own life and work, but then also to have a little bit of oxygen, breathed into you. So that you can think, so that you can think about the person that you are hoping to be and think about whatever it is that is ahead of you on your path next. So I'm more convinced of this than ever, that authentic leadership that's compelling, caring, connects people is needed in the world today, and creating compelling cultures is the greatest competitive advantage we have in the world. So teams, organizations, everyone out there, we have great work to do together, and I'm glad you are tuning in today. Before we start with today's topic, if you'll just take a minute, literally 1 minute, and just rate this podcast 5 stars, of course. But if you will rate it, if you'll leave a nice review on whatever platform you're listening to, I hate that I always have to ask for that, but this is the way that it spreads. This is the way that the algorithms work, where people can find this podcast. So rating it 5 stars, leaving a nice review, sharing it on social media or with your colleagues or telling them about it, whatever's authentic for you. But those are the ways in which this spreads, and thank you for everybody that takes a time to do that. I truly appreciate that. So on today's podcast, we're talking about an element of mental agility related to training our minds to shift into a pathway of possibilities rather than the easier pathway of a that will never work mentality. Keep listening and more to come. But let's take a break. Let's pause for a second, and we'll be right back with today's episode. Many teams and organizations right now are realizing that they need to do both. They need to engage the minds and hearts of their people in person, where everyone in the room can experience the energy of congregating together and find clarity for the road ahead. And they also need to continue to find ways to engage the minds and hearts of their people virtually, with those who are working remotely or at a distance. So, if you are in the process of planning your next team meeting, company all-hands event, conference, or culture summit, and are looking for support with a powerful keynote speech, facilitated team conversations that are the currency for change, or deeper development on leadership mindset and an intentional strategy for the culture you're trying to create, I hope you'll contact us at jasonvbarger.com, jasonvbarger.com. It is my privilege and our honor to partner with great people to provide support in these areas. We want to breathe oxygen into your leaders and throughout your organization so you can set the temperature you want for your culture. We look forward to connecting with you soon. First thing I'll say today as a part of this episode is just a quick look back. I'll just say first and foremost, thank you to everybody who has helped with the launch of the new, my latest book, Breathing Oxygen. Launching anything in the world today requires the help of other people, courage to kind of put yourself out there, but then you really need other people to help care about it, and then also share it with people around them. So when it resonates. So thank you to everybody out there who sincerely, that it's been a wonderful surprise or an excitement to see how well the book is done and the way that it has been resonating with people across the country and around the world, reaching number one as a new release on Amazon in its first couple of weeks. And now it's in the stack of other books in the world. It's not a new release anymore, at least the way they I guess track that. And so now we just want to continue to spread it and with other people. So thanks to everybody that has done that and continues to. I hope that it breathes good oxygen into you and also into the people that you share it with. Thank you. On our last episode, we talked about your words and actions vibrate. Our words and our actions vibrate. And we talked about the vibrations, the way that we kind of, are we breathing oxygen into the room, into the space, or, and into other people, or are we taking or stealing oxygen from the room or from other people? And so we're going to build upon that today, and we're going to talk a little bit about mental agility. And so today, many people, I saw this on a poster one time where I saw these words written out, these letters written out, all jammed together. So jammed together in one tight, long word where it said Opportunitisnowhere, all in one long word that was crammed together. And I saw this on a poster one time. And as you look at it, you saw all these words kind of jumbled together, but there were two main ways that people see or would see this poster, and they would see it differently. Some would clearly see these jumbled words together, these jumbled letters together, that they would see it that it would say, opportunity is nowhere. Opportunitisnowhere. Some people clearly could see the poster and see what they first would see with their eyes is that it read, opportunity is nowhere. Yet others, when they would look at the poster, right off the bat, they would see that the letters said something clearly different. They would see that it says, opportunity is now here. Opportunity is now here. However you see it, whether you see it as opportunity is nowhere or opportunity is now here, how you see it impacts your view, your vantage point, your mindset. The power of our mind and the power of suggestion takes us down different pathways. The mind will point us in a particular direction. We may just want, to help train it how we want to see the world. So if our mind's going to take us in a particular pathway, maybe we ought to think about how do we want to practice or train it, and do we want to, when we look at things, do we want to see that it says opportunity is nowhere, or do we want to see that it says opportunity is now here? Agility begins in the mind. It's the ability to think and understand things quickly. That's what agility really means, is the ability to think and understand quickly. But we often need to practice how to breathe in this way. How do we fuel that mindset? It's way easier to cling to the patterns, the routines, or the way that we've always done it. It takes practice to actually breathe in a new way. And the oxygen we breathe into a mind that welcomes change and adjustment is the beginning of becoming or being an agile leader, being somebody who's able to be mentally agile. Agile leaders then begin to see possibilities and breathe life into themselves and those around them and what is possible. Possibility that breathes life, excitement, and energy into everyone that is involved. And although agility begins in the mind, it flows into adaptability. Once we're agile, then it flows into adaptability, which is the practice of adjusting our steps, our actions, or our courses of action. So once we begin to identify and begin to develop this kind of agile mindset, then we're able to adapt and practice adjusting our steps, our actions, our course of action. Adaptability is the quality of being able to adjust to new conditions, to modify for a new use or purpose. Agility leads to possibility, which leads to adaptability. And it all begins in the mind. It all begins with the oxygen we breathe. It all begins with how we see the things that are in front of us. Do we see them as opportunity is nowhere or opportunity is now here? I love this example, but if you've ever experienced an illusionist or a magician perform, then you will better appreciate the power of the mind. You know, these illusionists or magicians, when you watch one of them, you know, who's a master at this, watch them perform, they're masters at using sensory illusions or sleight of hand techniques, and it trains of logic and memory. They use this kind of sleight of hand technique or these sensory illusions to kind of manipulate someone's attention. Famous examples are when they make a ball or a card appear from what appears to be out of thin air. They all of a sudden pull it out of something. Through master techniques that steal our attention, they're playing into the power of the brain to imagine and see what we have been trained to see or believe. What we give our attention to greatly affects what we see. The same thing happens, of course, in our everyday lives, not just in sleight of hand card tricks, but the same thing happens in our everyday lives. What we give our attention to greatly affects what we see. Our minds are powerful computers, capable of far more than we realize, but it runs on an unconscious kind of operating system, if you will, one based on easy, comfortable habits, routines, and the way of seeing things. So when our operating system has gotten used to doing things a particular way, our minds oftentimes want to kind of go the path of least resistance. And so we want to do what's easy, what's comfortable, the habits, routines. We want to pull that information that we're used to very quickly. And by the way, this serves us in many ways by helping us maintain routines, patterns, and structures to cling to in a fast-changing world. But it also limits us because what we give our attention to greatly affects what we see. Our minds can become stuck in one way of thinking, acting, and interacting that is aligned with the illusion of what we think we should see, rather than growing and expanding the ways in which we think, act, and interact. And so leaders, teams, or entire organizations that get stuck in the quote-unquote, this is the way we've always done it, that kind of mode, have often clung to those safe patterns rather than intentionally shifting their attention to try to see things differently. So seeing possibilities and the ability to be agile and adapt the plan or path along the way takes practice in the way we think, act, and interact. And so, the recent global pandemic proved this and highlighted, the effectiveness or ineffectiveness in many ways of leaders across industries and nations who were either able or unable to see possibilities. In the midst of challenges, to see what's possible, to have agile minds, and then be able to adapt their plans as things were changing. The best leaders and team cultures in the world breathe that kind of oxygen into themselves and the people around them that stimulates new ways of thinking, seeing, acting, and interacting. As Jim Collins, the famous guy who wrote, Good to Great, and I love his book, Built to Last, where he studied companies why did some companies with pretty much the same, factors, the same market, why did some last over many, many years and others did not? And what he talked about is they create environments that preserve the very best of the core of their past, but at the same time have the ability to see opportunity and to stimulate progress at the same time. how they practice seeing things and then practicing that thinking to be agile and to adapt is key to their success. So we know this, that leaders who understand this and teams and organizations that are committed to helping their people, learn how to breathe in this way with this kind of mental agility, that not only because that's the right thing to do and to help care for people and help people develop, but it also, our performance expands. These kind of leaders, these kind of teams, these kind of organizations realize they need to continuously be in the business of helping people breathe, helping people think and see possibilities in a world that often seems very challenging and uncertain, and to provide a vision for the future that everyone's sight lines improve and helps them breathe better in order to take those next steps, even if we need to adapt them along the way. Healthy cultures and authentic, compelling cultures aren't something that just naturally happen. It doesn't just naturally come together. How we think and how we see matters, and the mindset that we develop and practice together helps guide our actions and interactions. So as always, let me leave you with some things to think about or some questions to ponder this week. In what ways could you shift your mindset to see more possibilities? In what ways could you shift your mindset to see more possibilities? What examples in your life and work need a little mental agility right now? And what practices would help you breathe differently to practice this type of thinking? Challenge your eyes to see. What practices would help you kind of see things differently and practice this kind of opportunity is now here kind of thinking? So I hope those questions serve you this week as you're thinking about your life and your work. The last thing I'll just wrap up with is just I know many people continue to send me messages wondering with the launch of the new book, Breathing Oxygen, hey, is the launch over? How can I help? All those kind of things. Well, of course you can. There's 3 quick ways that you can. One, if you haven't gotten the book yet, get the book. So order the book wherever, on Amazon or Amplify. You can go right to jasonvbarger.com. Wherever it is that comfortable for you to buy the book, get the book. And then what I say is read it. I want a book that people will actually read. So I hope it resonates with you and that it breathes some good oxygen into you. And then if it does, and only if it does, if it authentically resonates with you, then I invite you to share it, because that's what happens in the world today. Is anything that's willing or worthy of being shared, we should share it. So give copies to the people around you. If it resonates with your team or your organization, share it with the people and help kind of develop this kind of thinking on your team and your organization. Share it with your networks. Tell people about it. Those are the ways in which it really helps right now. And then lastly is reviews. Reviews are so important in the world online today. So leave a 5-star review on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or wherever it is that you get it, so that other people can see and find it. Obviously, if you have other ideas that you think of ways you can help with the launch, send us an email, info@jasonvbarger.com. Let us know any ideas that you have, but really we hope that it resonates with you and the people around you. It's really, really exciting that it's connecting with people, and I appreciate everybody for sharing it. So let's all breathe in appreciation and gratitude for all that is within our control. Now is our chance as leaders and as humans in the world today to positively impact, ourselves, to breathe in some good oxygen even in the midst of uncertainty, and then to breathe oxygen into other people and to our teams and the people around us on the journey. That gives energy to everyone. So let's calibrate our personal thermostat for our own awareness and our response. What do we want that behavioral response to be? We are the thermostat, and our temperature sets a temperature for the people around us. So I hope you'll keep tuning in. On the next episode, we're going to be talking about the 4 stages of the creative process, which I think will build off of this beginning talk about mental agility and about adapting our mind and seeing things. And then we'll talk about what is that process that we go through, what is that process of the creative process to help move us from where we are to where we want to go. Remember, the best leaders, teams, and cultures on the planet stimulate progress by recalibrating their thermostat together and then breathing oxygen into themselves, into the people around them for the next step of the journey. Thank you for listening to today's podcast, and I hope the messages and questions stimulate positive change along your path. As always, if these messages resonate with you and add value to your life, I hope you'll help amplify them throughout the world. Please rate, comment, and share on whatever podcast or social media platform you're using, and share this podcast with the people in your life or work who should be part of these conversations. That way, this spirit does, in fact, spread. If these messages or developing leaders and culture would be helpful to you and your organization, please contact us at jasonvbarger.com, jasonvbarger.com. And remember, we are all ambassadors for the culture we want to create in our life and work. We have to own the vision we want to be a part of. The future of leadership is you, is me, is us. Be a thermostat.